We're joined by Courtney Lauer Carlson, a 2011 graduate from DePauw University that is now a member of the class of 2025 in the DePauw Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me about how you found that news out. Did you anticipate it coming? Was it a letter, a phone call? How did you find out that you made it into the Hall of Fame?
Wasn't really ready for it, I guess. I know my coach, Peter Curry, he said, I'm going to put you in for this. This was, a few years ago, and I didn't think much of it. And got a call one day that I didn't answer. I don't usually answer unknown numbers, and heard the message. It says, "Hi, this is Stevie Baker Watson." Oh, this is it. And called her right back in the middle of her message, and she told me it was cool. Unexpected, but I was excited. It was a just kind of a random day, and that happened. So it was cool.
Yeah, well, that was one that we all anticipated happening after the athletic career that you had at DePauw. So obviously that's an emotional thing. It's a kind of a tribute to the time that you spent in the sports that you represented at DePauw. I'm certain that Sam, your husband, was able to share in that. Are your children are young? Were they able to understand and process what this means?
A little bit. Sam definitely did. So he played college golf at Maryville University in St. Louis. So he understood, it was a big deal. He was on national championship team too. So he understands the sentiment, and we've been away from major sports for a while. Kids are kind of our life now. And so you kind of get to dive back into, you kind of relive the stuff. And it's a cool feel. And my kids kind of get it. They know, sports, they see a few trophies here and there packed in a cabinet, but I don't think it's really hit them yet.
Right. Well, you look at a career in high school, academically as valedictorian, a multi-sport athlete. You probably had multiple options of places where you could go to the school. How did you find your way to DePauw?
Yeah, so we had kind of the spectrum going. Anything from a big school, like you said, I was a decent athlete, but I wasn't going to be, elite Division I. That was never an expectation. A lot of my family went to Mizzou. It's a big university in Missouri. So that would have been probably no sports or, rec sports. Had that option. My sister went to Truman State. She ran track there. It's a little Division II school in Missouri. Could have done that. She would have been a senior when I was a freshman, and that was kind of her thing. It kind of would have felt like I was stepping on her ground up there. It was really cold there too, so that was not high on my list. I looked at some basketball, looked at some track. I watched you in St. Louis was an option. Also, heavy basketball, good school. So DePauw, I will say the tipping point was I got a call one night, another random call, kind of like the Hall of Fame. I had applied for the Rector Scholarship, and I think we were at a basketball game that night, came home late. I was upstairs getting ready, get homework done, go to bed. And my dad had checked the messages back in the answering machine days. And he's like, "There's a message down here. You need to come listen to it." And it was, I forget the name. I should know this. Somebody had called me from admissions and said, "Congratulations, you're a recipient of the Rector Scholarship," which is the all tuition scholarship. And, college costs money. And I was torn between a couple. I really liked DePauw. I had come visited with Coach Huffman. Frankly, it was basketball at that point. I really wasn't looking at track. I was really, really enjoying basketball. Loved the scene there. They're excellent. That was the year they won the national championship the first time. Academics were good. I like the math department, which is what I ended up in. So at this point we were crunching numbers. I got a good scholarship at WashU, but it felt so close to home that I knew that if I was uncomfortable, I could just go home. DePauw was about 3.5 hours away. I thought, you know what? It's going to push me out of my comfort zone a little. It's probably a good thing for me.
That's
to
great.
be able to run home on the weekend if I'm having a hard time with whatever. So give myself a little space to grow. And that scholarship, I think, was the tipping point for all of us to be like, yeah, this is the right place.
So originally coming in for basketball, the Rector Scholarship was the element that tipped it for DePauw. Did you know at that point what you wanted to study?
So I wanted something math related. I guess the three kind of big ones. If you're going into math, you can be a teacher, you can be an accountant, you can be an actuary. I had a soccer coach from grade school, and then I went to high school with his son. He was an actuary in St. Louis. I talked to him about the career, seemed like a good fit. I went back and forth on the teacher coach thing because I also thought that would be fun, but ultimately ended up going the actuarial route. So Professor Wu, who's still there in the math department, at the time we were sort of launching that actual science major wasn't really a thing yet. She was helping some of us try to prepare for the exams with a couple of the classes. And then, that has become a legit major now, people go through that. But yeah, it was, maybe, I don't know if that's rare or not, just to come in thinking I'm going to do this and then end up actually doing that, I also took a couple of intro classes in computer science. I like that stuff, the coding stuff. I also took one in kinesiology, thinking maybe the sports route. Like to live in that atmosphere, but stuck with the math. That's where I've been. We're still, we're just 14 years later, so still doing it.
So with no actuary science degree and you kind of putting the pieces of it together, did you think that was a potential career path? Did it seem like that could become a degree by the time you graduated, or how did that play out time-wise?
It didn't, I wasn't worried about it becoming a degree. There's a lot of paths you can take and still become an actuary. Like there's a lot of math majors, some computer science. It's more about taking the exams to make you credentialed, that they're on the path to getting credentials that kind of gets you in for internships and such. What I guess really stuck me on that path for good was through the Management Fellows program. We did a semester-long internship as part of that program, and I did mine in St. Louis at the firm that I'm still at. So I did that internship, followed up the next summer with another one, and once I graduated, then worked full-time. So
now, I'm assuming that you can't become a valedictorian. I've not ever been one, so I don't know actually that process, but I assume that you can't get there. And you mentioned that you're a perfectionist without having just an elevated set of expectations of yourself. So now as a high-level student and a multi-sport athlete, you come in to DePauw, your first basketball experience, was it, and this DePauw is a good program. So you come in, and did it feel like you were over your head? Did you have any kind of reservations as like, I'm going to come off the bench here, I'm going to be a starter here? Where were your thoughts in those first few training sessions?
I remember the speed of the game was ramped up so much from high school, so that was a lot to take in. And Coach Huffman's really good with the freshmen, and so remember this was coming off their national championship year, so a lot of interest in DePauw basketball. I think we had 17 freshmen try out that year, and we kept,
oh my goodness,
however many, 6 of us or something. So it was a bunch. The competition was fierce. I was just out there trying to fly around as best I could, knowing I wasn't going to be perfect. But yeah, I think it was the speed that was the shock first. You're like, oh my gosh, it's ramped up 5 times since the speed we played at in high school, just the reaction of, just everything happening.
At what point did you feel like you caught up? Did that happen during your first season? You played 3 years of basketball, correct?
Yeah, probably first season. I ended up playing 3. I had a bout of just yucky injuries, just naggy stuff. I tore my shoulder. I had a really bad ankle sprain my sophomore year. So I guess in my mind, I'm a little bit persistent to a fault. I will just work through things sometimes to my own demise. I need to let it go sometimes, but tried really hard to get through all that and make my way into a rotation. I just never quite got there. Couldn't quite make the fit. I loved playing. Even if you're not out on the floor a whole bunch with that team, you're a part of it for sure. Everybody's working hard. What I did end up taking pride in, because I'm very competitive with myself, was that, I wasn't out there playing the games, but in practice, we would have these conditioning days. I think they're on Tuesdays. We had a name for them. I'm not remembering them, but everybody hated those days. And I kind of relished in it because this was like my moment to shine. Like, I'm going to beat all of you and I'm going to make you push harder. Like, that was kind of my thing. I'm sure some people hated me for that, but it was my way to, like, in my mind, that was my contribution. I'm going to push my teammates. If I can't, I'm not, developing enough. I'm not going to be good enough to put floor minutes on. I'm going to be a practice player, and I'm going to do my best in that role. So,
yeah, you talk about the team camaraderie, and from those of us that watched from the fans, the way that the players on the bench were just as into every game as the players on the court was very impressive to see. Now, so you played basketball for 3 years. How did track jump into the mix? How did you find your way into a second sport when the two kind of overlap a little bit?
Right. Yeah. So I knew Coach Corey. He had met me on my college visit. It's like, if you ever want to come back to track, I wasn't thinking track at that point. I had, decent jump numbers from high school. And he's like, come jump anytime you want, come be on my team. I didn't want to double sport. And like I said, I had some naggy injury problems, some bigger injury problems. So by the end of sophomore season, I was feeling pretty demoralized. Like it just wasn't competing at a high level. Didn't feel like I was meeting expectations. It's like, I felt like I needed to be good at something again, be competitive again. So when I talked to Coach Corey at one of their indoor meets, kind of towards the end of basketball, and said, hey, would it be okay if I came out in the spring? He said, yes, let's come out, let's give it a try. And outdoor sophomore season, decided, I really kind of missed track. These are kind of my people, fit in pretty well. Made some friends on the team. Lauren Reich, who got inducted a few years ago, Loeffler, now married. She kind of took me in, she was a high level runner, distance runner, and she's like, you got to do this. Like, I want you out here. And so I did go back and play basketball another year and then tore my shoulder. I'm like, okay, I think I need to be done with basketball. It's just, I'm not, it's just beating me up. I just am not doing well here. So I finished that last season, went through track outdoor, had surgery to put my shoulder back in the right spot. And then senior year went full on track, did indoor and outdoor season and kind of finished off that way. So
I have heard that shoulder injuries are some of the most painful ones and they take a long time to recover from. So how, even though running is not a contact sport, it is during, how much did that play into your ability to find your footing and track?
The hardest one was javelin because I kind of had an odd angle as my right arm, throwing arm, to kind of find a comfort level to keep throwing as much as necessary, but not too much. We kind of kept that at a minimum just to get through it, but did okay. And then so surgery, it was like a week after I got home from nationals junior year, laid up. I've never experienced going that far out of shape and then having to come back. Like, you can't do anything. You can't be moving, you can walk around, but you can't jostle or anything like that. In the big sling, I actually did my internship for my job I'm now at in a big sling. So I had no right hand. So I said, sorry if I write you a note that looks like a kindergartner because right with my left hand. So yeah, it was kind of a slog to get through that. And the other part of that for getting out of basketball the next season was I couldn't take contact for 6 months. So I was going to be like December. And so, let's not do that. It's not worth it. I'm not going to be helpful to the team or anything. So I just, let's go back for indoor. I could start running after a while. I didn't throw for a while. And then somebody kind of made fun of me, I forget which teammate, for having you have a bionic arm now because it's like 5 meters farther in javelin the next year with a repaired shoulder. So it was good. It worked out. Yeah. Working through some pain was kind of stinky there for a little bit, but you look back on it, it's like it totally sucked at the time, but it builds you up in a way too that you don't expect when you look back on it. So it was a good thing.
Did you throw in high school too?
No, it wasn't even an event. It's starting to make its way into high school sports. It is in Missouri a little bit now. They'll actually throw javelin with like a rubber tip on it. It's more of a safety thing for high schoolers, throwing a big spear if you can't control it, could hurt somebody.
So you just learned that at DePauw?
Yes, that was new, as was hurdles, which I was never very good at, but we got through that one too. So
unreal. And so you didn't just compete in track. You were a 3-time All-America, which is absolutely unbelievable. And then also congratulations on being part of the 30th anniversary team for the SCAC. Unbelievable honors. So, talk a little bit about some of the high moments from your athletic career, both conference and then on the national level.
I think actually my favorite one. So I told you, we're building up to the decathlon. You got all those events. I had a lot of jumps and sprinting type of experience from high school, but a couple of those, I never did hurdles. I never did javelins. We're building into those things. And the last thing I never raced was an 800. We had trained in practice. And then it was one of the early bird meets. It was at Rose Holman. This is the first time I'm going to race. I'm like nervous as heck. I've never raced farther than like a 400. I was not a distance person at all. And we trained for it. And I went in. Lauren Reich, Loeffler just made fun of me so bad after that race for my horrible cut in at the turn on not knowing how to function in a distance race. But I ended up running like a low 220. And I remember looking at Coach Prairie and his eyes are real big, like not only, okay, we have this last event and we're good, but we can compete nationally with that time. That's a lot of points. That was a big one. And so that was kind of that turning point. We're just not doing this to be good in conference. Like we can go compete nationally. It was like that. Now we're like, we could be good. We could be top 10. So I just remember looking back at that. I don't think I totally realized that right then, but like a week later, like, oh, we can do this. This is gonna be good. So that was probably
So
my favorite one.
it didn't happen in the moment. I mean, you had a good time, not good time like good time, but a good time. I think it was 2 minutes and 22 seconds. So you had a good time, but the reality of being on the national stage didn't hit right then. It took
No,
overnight.
so yeah, so it wasn't like that 800 kind of like I had to go run a heptathlon, go do the actual event still, which we ended up doing a little later in the spring at Defiance, Ohio, in the rain. We had a thunderstorm overnight and dropped about 40 degrees, so that was a fun little extra event. But it was like me and two of my teammates, we did like a special meet just to go run a heptathlon because that does not exist at every meet that we do. They don't host the multi events; it's a 2 day thing. So yeah, it was then I was, pressure was on, like, now we're going to go do a real one. Let's run this 800 again, get through the other events. And at that point, and Coach Curry will be better at remembering this stuff, where exactly we were ranked after that one, but it was enough to get us in. And we ran another, I'm mixing up years. I know we ran one at WashU too, but it was that first one at Defiance that was, then we knew we had the points. We had the mindset, we can do this. And then we had to go actually put all the pieces together and do it.
And then so you put the pieces together and you compete on the national stage. What did that feel like? What was that
That was
experience?
sort of surreal, like, because I guess I was a junior and that was my first time in, and there was a couple of repeat medalists in there. The cool thing about the heptathlon is like you're not just running an event. Heptathlon is a little more like a little sisterhood there for a couple days because you're competing against each other, but it's a lot against yourself. So like it doesn't matter if you win an event, you want the points. So however you manage to put your points together, whatever your strong events are, it doesn't really matter right up until the end when they tally all those points. So, if I think I was like third to last in hurdles, but it was the best hurdle race I had points. Nobody cares that I was near the end. And you're all kind of, trying to support each other. It's 2 days. It was hot. It was like 102. It was in Cleveland at Baldwin Wallace. We were cooking by the end of that second day, trying to get through that 800. We were psyching everybody up right before that race. Like, all right, two more laps, and we can fall down and enjoy it here. Yeah, a little bit surreal. I was hoping we would just go out and compete well, did really well. I was not in medal contention before the 800, and then I'm looking at Coach Corey, and he's like, "We're in 8th, we're in 7th, we're in 6th," and he's yelling at me from the bleachers, like, "Yeah, we got all of it," but then everybody kind of. Yeah, we celebrated, we took it in, we had Lauren competing and Nicole Stein competing there too. So it was really fun weekend.
Yeah, awesome. Some great memories there. You don't get to be your level of student with academic success and your level athletically without having one, you got to have an internal drive, but there also have to be people that help shape you and help guide you and keep you motivated in down times. Prior to coming to DePauw, who were some of those life forces that really made a difference in who you are?
My people were always my teammates. Those were the ones that kind of lift you up on a daily basis. It's game day at school, everybody's high-fiving in the hallway and stuff, that type of stuff. Academically, I really enjoyed my math teachers in high school. They were kind of the uplifting ones for me, and the academic stuff was more of like an internal grind for me that I kind of took care of. College, similarly, always the teammates. So yeah, kind of similar experience in both levels.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a few people: Lauren, Coach Corey, Coach Peter, Coach Huffman. Any fun stories? Any emotional stories involving any of them as they mentored you through your years at DePauw?
Yeah, I didn't mention the late great Coach Reha. He was also out there. He helped with throws. Boy, you could hear him anywhere in the wind across the field, and he'd yell, and he he used to make fun of Coach Prairie. He's like, "You don't do anything out here. What are you doing out here? I could stick a broom out here and it would coach just as well at you." He used to like to rib him because we'd be off doing our heptathlon stuff away from the rest of the crowd. We had to hit different events during practice. Sometimes it wasn't always like with the sprinters or with the jumpers. Sometimes we were out there doing our own thing. So he liked to give them some trouble. But yeah, Coach Ray had a great supporter out there, and he brought the fun and the jokes. So I'm seeing him this weekend. And, he was a great coach. Also had a couple of really good teammates I still keep in touch with. Lee Harmon and Taryn Owens and Jillian Balser. We texted the other day. We had a Facebook time hop back to like my senior year, us watching a football game. God, we all look like babies. Look at us. This was fun. We don't talk a lot anymore, but it is fun to kind of, touch base with those guys every once in a while.
Yeah. So now you're involved in a lot of stuff. You mentioned management fellows. You majored in math, minored in economics. So you're involved in a ton of stuff. How do you navigate all of these things that you've got going on? I mean, you're high level academic, you're high level athletic in 2 sports. You've got all these other clubs that you're involved in, social life, friends. How do you navigate that?
Frankly, I didn't do the social life thing very much. I kind of take the athletics and academics. They were my jobs. That's what I liked doing. I had fun doing them. And so that's what I worked hard at, is like, eat, sleep, go to class, do your homework, practice, come home, repeat. And that was fun for me. I like that stuff. I didn't join a sorority. I didn't really care about going out on the weekends. It just probably a little weird in that aspect for most college kids, but I like doing the serious stuff, I guess, a little more. That was fun for me. So that's what I did. I don't say I cut out. I just didn't do the extra social stuff so much. And yeah, it is a slog. I just, like I said, I'm kind of wired to be achievement driven. So I was kind of always after the next thing. What am I going after?
Gotcha. And so you graduate in 2011, magna cum laude, and Amy Hasbrook Award recipient. So you cap off an impressive college career with 2 pretty big honors. Did you see those coming? What did that feel like? Or are you at that point saying, I'm getting ready to head into the next part of my life?
Definitely didn't see the Amy Hasbrook one coming. That was pretty cool. Coach Huffman always talked really highly of Amy. Before she passed away, I knew she was a really gritty player. Just a great overall teammate. So, having that honor was really cool. And her parents show up to that stuff. And we had seen them at basketball games. I had met her mom and her dad. So really, really cool to do that. That was a surprise. I wasn't really looking at the next thing yet. I was kind of hanging on to that last bit of stuff before you go into the adult world, because it is a little less fun than competing in college. So, and we talked about this before too, is it's such a big part of your life, the athletic bit. And then you go to a job, and unless you're going back into coaching or back, and none of us at Division III are expecting to be professional athletes by any means. I know there's been a couple people that'll go play overseas or something, but none of us, I think, are thinking that that's going to be our career. So, you're planning on that next thing, and it's going to end, and then you get to the next bit. And I think that was my biggest shock, was that nobody cares anymore that you were an athlete. Nobody knows what you did. You're in this new group of people. You're a grunt. You're a new person in this job. You have no experience. And it's like, oh, that big chunk of you just kind of got left behind. That's a hard transition to do. And I had a desk job. So I remember, like, when you just move all day, so you just walking around and running and stuff. I'm like, just sitting there for 8 hours was just a pain, like a literal pain for a little bit, until I got used to it. And so you got to kind of find other ways to be competitive and kind of find that bit of yourself again, because it's so different once you cross that line and you're officially out of it and graduated. I would say the same thing with like a work-life balance. So, now I have kids. You're like, my gosh, I didn't do anything in college. I have 2 tiny humans to take care of. And that's a whole other, animal. So it's just, just kind of keep growing through those life phases. But it's, just part of the process, I guess.
Courtney Lauer Carlson, 2011 graduate, Amy Hasbrook Award winner, 3-time All-American, magna cum laude at DePauw University, and now a member of the DePauw 2025 Athletic Hall of Fame. Congrats, and thank you very much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Brad.